Good evening and welcome to 60 Minutes. February the 18th this year was one hell of a day for Glenn Dickson. Out spearfishing 40 kilometres off the Far North Queensland coast, he was attacked, not once, but twice, by a 3.5 metre bull shark. It severed his right leg and ruptured a main artery. He was hours away from medical help. He died 6 times. So much went wrong that day for Glenn, but so much more went right. His mates kept reviving him as they raced him to hospital, and he kept on thinking about his fiancée and precious young children. If ever it was needed, Glenn's story proves the power of love can be life-saving.
We're in a boat at the moment, we're racing in, we just had a shark attack.
Are you with the patient now?
Yeah, we're with the patient, but he's not in a good way.
In the middle of the Coral Sea and on the brink of death.
I remember seeing a bright light. It was very bright.
Is there any serious bleeding?
Yes.
Few could survive what Glenn Dickson endured, but as his life slipped away,
He's not in a good way, mate, he's not in a good way.
he held onto hope. What were you thinking about?
My son, my daughter, my family. In that situation, you can't think deeply. You could only see pictures of their faces. That was enough to keep me driving forward.
Glenn focused on simple things, like this, spending time with his children. 3-year-old Reef, 1-year-old Lila, and fiancée Jessie Lee, who's due to give birth to their 3rd child in just a few weeks. This is what saved your life.
Yeah, you're totally 100% right. My family saved my life.
And so did his mates, with extraordinary teamwork in difficult conditions.
Without any one of us there, I don't think Glenn would have made it.
It's hard to believe that just 2 months ago, this 25-year-old almost died. But Glenn is an extreme athlete, a personal trainer and amateur boxer who recently discovered spearfishing. It's what led him to the biggest fight of his life. Dawn breaks on February 18 and conditions are perfect. Blue skies, calm water and plenty of fish. What was it about it you think that you enjoyed so much?
The beauty of the reef. Being able to go down and not hear any noise and kind of relax, but at the same time hunt fish and get a feed out of it.
It was also how Glenn spent time with his good friend Rick Batua, a US Navy master diver with 32 years of experience. How often have you come across sharks?
Every day we go diving here.
Every day. How big?
We have some pretty good fair-sized tigers that are out there that can be upwards of 5 meters.
Glenn and Rick are joined by Peter Stefanovic and Aaron Butler, also experienced fishermen. Even though they're used to swimming with sharks, all 4 men are concerned about murky water and poor visibility, so they move to Eva Rock, off the coast of Port Hinchinbrook, hoping for clearer conditions.
The water was quite nice compared to the other places, and there was fish life everywhere, bait everywhere. I was loving it. Big caves, swim-throughs, beautiful water.
Within minutes, the shark was spotted. Peter saw it first.
I seen a big sight pectoral fin and the body of the shark. I couldn't see the head or the tail because it was sort of in the dark. And I come up and I said to Rick, there's a big shark down there.
How big was it?
3.5 meters, maybe.
Big.
Big shark.
But Glenn had become separated from the group after diving through a cave. He speared a parrotfish and was floating to the surface behind Eva Rock when the shark attacked.
All of a sudden, I felt a massive pull and shake. It got pulled slightly underwater, and I knew at that point that I was getting attacked by a shark. Kind of went in slow motion as I realised. And as I watched blood rise, that image is imprinted in my head. I'll never forget it, watching the shark come through my blood.
So the shark's coming up for a second bite now?
Yeah. I knew as he turned away that he was going to come back. So my instincts immediately kicked into survival mode, and I knew that rock was there. So I used everything that I had left to pull myself towards the rock. And he came back and got me again.
As Rick was swimming back to the boat just a few metres away, he heard a muffled scream.
When I turned around, the water was just bright, bright red. And he was trying to claw his way up a rock face. And I could see his body moving in a way that you can't move your body, so that the shark was shaking him.
Get in the boat! Glenn's been hit by a shark!
Really, it was just a blur. We were all in the boat and we zipped around the corner there. I think it would only took 15 seconds, maybe at the most.
I wasn't giving up at all. I didn't think I'm going to die. I thought I'm going to get on that rock. That's all I could think.
My worst fears was that he was gone from the waist down both legs. As we pulled him overboard, he sort of looked at us. You can imagine he was really white. He'd lost a lot of blood. He sort of looked at us and half smiled, eh? And we thought it was weird, like...
Biggest smile on his face.
Yeah, it's just a funny sort of thing. You pull someone with their leg nearly ripped off and they're smiling at you, but...
I seen this light and it was very bright, and then it would go away, and I think I was when I got punched in the chest. And it was enough to bring me back. And then Rick in my ear telling me, "You got to go back to your family, you're not going to die on me today."
You know why they were doing that, though.
Yeah, I know exactly why.
You were dying.
Yeah. More than once, too. But I was determined.
How close were you, do you think?
As close as you can get. As close as you can get. But I never gave up. I could have gone to sleep. I remember having the choice. And I just remember, no, screw that. I'm gonna feel that pain, and Rick said keep feeling the pain. So I just focused on my breathing. I focused on that pain, and that's all I was gonna do.
Luckily for Glenn, Rick had 3 decades of first aid training while he was in the Navy. What were his injuries when you pulled him on board?
He had a 360-degree cut around his thigh, about right here. It went completely all the way around, and every vein and every artery was severed. He also had a massive gash on his calf here, slicing down into that as well. And the very first thing I did was put a tourniquet about mid-thigh.
How much time did you have to save Glenn's life?
It came down to seconds, so...
Seconds.
The first tourniquet didn't do anything to improve his color. His color was ashy white, had no pulse, had no respirations. And then I saw a little bit of blood, and I put the second tourniquet on. And the moment that happened, he came back 2 shades of color different, and he coughed, and then he screamed.
I was just single-mindedly trying to get AAA no matter what. I was just constantly redialing.
But because they were more than 40 kilometres from land, it took Aaron half an hour to get a phone signal.
He's still conscious, mate. He's awake. We've got a guy that used to be in the Navy in America. He's got him in the recovery position. We've got a tourniquet on. I'm sorry if I'm yelling, mate. I'm just...
No, you're right, mate.
Peter was behind the wheel, racing to shore.
Lucky that day it was glass flat, yeah, so I think it's about 72 kilometres, which is flat chat for that boat.
As the boat bumped along, Rick cradled Glenn in his arms, desperately trying to keep him alive.
Got to the point where I got cold and cold and colder and colder all the way up my body, and I could feel it coming up my body. And right up to, and when I reached my lungs, my breath started getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter.
But finally, after an agonising 45 minutes, Port Hinchinbrook Marina was in sight.
I still, at that stage, didn't think that Glenn was going to make it, but it was just so much relief seeing the ambulance bloke up there knowing they got gear to help with this, what had happened.
However, this rescue mission was far from over. Glenn was still hours away from a major hospital, and they had to tell Jessie Lee the bad news.
My phone rang, and it was Rick's wife. Her name come up on my screen. And I paused, I just looked at my phone, and I knew straight away. I knew something had happened.
Coming up, Glenn's desperate fight to live.
Her words were, the shark has cut through his leg like a chainsaw.
But in another cruel blow, the heartless Centrelink rejection.
And they didn't consider losing a leg a permanent disability.
That's next on 60 Minutes.